all ignored for 5 minutes of stupidity. And that's me being nice about it.
Alonso turned into 130R next to Schumacher and gave that brilliant interview afterwards where he just said, I turned in, he's got 2 kids. He was going to back out, wasn't he? Moving on, aren't we? We're in very wistful, positive mood today.
It's Christmas. We're sending positive Christmas vibes.
Yeah, well, you're a big fan of Christmas, Neil, aren't you?
Fuck Christmas.
Let's take... Hello and welcome to episode 14 of the Car Podcast with Chris Harris and his friends. If I look sleepy, it's because I've just woken up having not watched the Grand Prix, which makes the F1 section of this very difficult for your learned host. I also might be doing this in my pants. So, let's start off with this Sunday night's recording. The following. You've woken up wanting a chain-driven car. Why this has happened, you do not know. Which one do you choose? I've got a funny feeling that Neil Clifford will have chosen the same one as me. We might have some overlap in this podcast, so I'm going to give Neil the chance to go first. Go on.
Well, it's a lovely discovery today that I have no clue about chain-driven cars, because it's the one question I think I've been asked on this podcast where I've thought, what the hell am I going to say to that? Because my mind is a little blank on chain-driven cars.
Easy for you to say.
I pre-war, which obviously isn't necessarily chain-driven, I was desperately hoping that an Alpha 6C was chain-driven. It is my favourite sort of pre-war 30s thing. There's like a million different 6Cs, of which I don't really understand all the differences, but they're so gorgeous, and they're like £1 billion now. So I've made one up, because I also went back to the sort of London to Brighton things, but then I didn't really understand any of those, whether it be Benz or Daimler or Peugeot. It's a big black hole for me. So what I'm going to choose is an imaginary Fraser Nash, because there's bound to be a Fraser Nash that's bloody chain driven. 1928, completely worn out body, like me, but beautiful mechanicals, like me, original leather, like me. And it's going to be called the Tourist Trophy Replica, but not a replica. I never understand. There's a lot of those cars that are called replicas. They're not actually.
Yeah, Le Mans replica as well, Fraser Nash, yeah.
And I don't really know whether, because they're not actually replicas.
No, they're not. They're sort of in-period continuations.
Yes.
Yeah.
They didn't actually compete, but they are
confused.
otherwise the same.
Yeah, I'm confused all of it. Anyway, so Fraser Nash, Tourist Trophy Replica, not a replica, TT Super Special.
Yeah.
Whatever the fuck that is, but I'm gonna turn up at Cop Hill and look cool in it, basically.
Oh God, you've absolutely knocked it out of the park there. You've just explained all of my, I suppose, insecurities on this subject. Like you, I've never driven one. I am fascinated by them. I think I'd quite like one. I think you need one in your shed. And I've read some brilliant writing about the challenges of driving them. So that's the reason why I posed the question. But you're quite right. You open these doors. It's like the back of Mr. Ben's shop, isn't it? You're like, what? So this is a part of the car world that I literally know nothing about. If I was asked to demonstrate or show people around this new part of my world, I couldn't tell you anything because I've got no idea. I don't know what.
I felt like Manish today.
A voyage of discovery.
Jesus Christ. Okay. Am I paying for the therapy after this? So I'll tell you what, on that note, Manish, what chain-driven car would you have?
Chris, you are in some ways like the perfect headmaster material. And
thank you.
I meant
the other one.
I meant the other, Chris. Because what you do is you allow people to go a little bit off-piste as long as you think it's good for the school. So my chain-driven car has a T on the end. It's a chain-driven cart. And there is only one chain-driven cart that I would want, and it's Senna's DAP. from when he competed in the karting world championships.
Ah,
And it is the most incredible kart. It was built by DAP for him, and there's a great story to this. He'd lost to Peter Koerner in '79, so they built him a new kart. And these things were made of magnesium. They had disc brakes, 21 horsepower. Can you? I don't know what does a kart weigh?
Not a lot.
Not a lot. So
Something
imagine
kilos.
Senna at that time would probably weigh about 55 kilos. His cart might have weighed, I don't know, 30 kilos, something like that, 40 kilos.
Yeah.
So I calculate that's about the power to weight ratio of a Countach. It really genuinely is. It's 21 horsepower. That's an extraordinary thing. So I'm going for the DAP WTR 101. And when you see the chain on it and you see the gold sprocket thing at the back, you will totally allow me to
I
have
think the
a
cart is
chain-driven
cart.
cart. And it was green and not red.
The DAP
WTR 101.
I mean, we'll put images up, but look at that.
Yeah.
Look at the dish on those wheels.
I think that's good.
Actually, I've got
Very
to.
Manish, you can have that all day long.
Sort of better pick. Look.
Move it along a
That
bit.
way, Nash.
Can you?
Oh,
Can you,
yeah.
can you see the cog on the chain on the back of that?
Yeah.
Gold.
Yes.
The gold wheels.
Look at the fat wheels too.
Right. I hate to say it, Mr. Cooper. These two have sort of smashed this. We could be in trouble here. I'm opening the floor to you.
We could be. And it's funny you opened this discussion by saying you might be doing it in your pants, because it's sort of, it'd be a bad dream if you woke up thinking, I want to drive a chain-driven car, because it's like one of those dreams where you're running around without your pants on, or you can't run up a slippery hill. Chain-driven cars in the day offered their drivers somewhere between light and medium decapitation risk, didn't they?
Yeah.
They really were. That famous one you see at Goodwood, Babs, which was buried in the beach at Pendine Sands, sort of lightly decapitated its driver. And the Fiat, that thing at Goodwood, see, the Beast of Turin, that's a chain-driven car.
Yeah.
They were mostly aero engines, because that's where big engines came from in those days. But, and actually we've all driven. I was going to start. If I'd started, I'd said, actually, we've all probably driven at least two chain-driven vehicles. The little pedal cars, when if we had a rich neighbour and a sort of a posh friend who had not a push thing, they would have had, I remember distinctly growing up, and they had a little a chain-driven pedal car. The other one's a go-kart. We've all driven go-karts. And I've got a modern one that's like the modern version of Ayrton's one you showed us, Ayrton Pandy. But the one I go for, and I hadn't realised this was chain-driven, but I really love it, and I've chosen it for other reasons at other times. It's the Honda S600.
Oh, nice.
It's chain-driven.
Is it?
It's chain-driven. Who knew?
Wow. This is the best question I've ever asked. Because
So-
I'm loving the answers it's generating.
Chain drive was basically, when we talk about pre-war, we all mean pre-World War II, but basically it's pre-World War One. So for the Honda S600 in the 1960s, it was the last chain-driven car. But you'd have it anyway. But for this question, it's the winner.
Yeah. Nice.
Chain-driven cars. I know he's a controversial figure, and I've been told never to mention his name again, but I still think he's writing about cars some of the most thought-provoking and descriptive that I've come across, and it's Alan Clark. And it was him writing about the challenges of driving a chain-driven car. It's always made me want one. So, and he always had one, and it was a red thing called a locomobile. There's a picture of it.
Yeah.
That's the one I would choose. And the way that he would talk about the challenges, the potential problems, i.e. losing one's head, was, I suppose it encapsulates an era of motoring where I think it's impossible for someone of our generation to really comprehend what on earth they were doing, because they knew the risks every time they got in this thing, particularly if it was competitive driving. and yet they did it all the same.
Yeah.
You know, they'd go to Brooklands and risk going over the top and chains coming off and, you know, lassoing themselves around their necks and whatever they did. But there was, and maybe this is the key thing, they were so addicted to the process of driving cars and of racing cars that they did it anyway. And I suppose that's the reason we're all here. We've just got a much more sensible version of it. But that addiction, whatever it is, that pheromone that these things release and make us behave the way we do, was the same in the chain-driven car. Maybe the way to describe it is that in its most pungent form, its most concentrated form, because the risks were just so high. Does that mean I want to go out on the B, whatever it is, in Somerset and risk killing myself? I don't know. But I do want to wrestle with one of these things to understand what it's like to drive one. So,
100 years ago, really.
Yeah. I mean, it's really a steam engine, isn't it? I mean, it's just, it's unbelievable. And of course,
there's still a lot of enthusiasm for racing Edwardian era cars.
Yeah.
And Motorsport UK still licenses events for those era of cars. They are very fragile. It's impossible to really fit modern safety equipment. There's nowhere to put a seatbelt. In fact, if you attached a seatbelt to something, it would probably break the car. There's no roll cage.
You want to be lobbed clear of it, really.
You kind of want to be lobbed clear. There was a very sad accident a couple of years ago at Mallory Park, where one of the great stalwarts of the scene sadly lost his life after a mechanical failure in his car. And we had a lot of soul searching about, in the modern era, whether a sporting governing body should allow us to continue. And our view was very strongly that we should, because everybody involved knew the risks and understanding. And it's part of their passion for their part of the sport, which we all share. So long may the passion for chain-driven vehicles continue.
Are those, the ERA, or ERA, obviously?
Yeah.
English racing automobiles.
Yeah, that's a chain-driven car, is it? I don't know, actually. I should know. But
some of them would have been, yeah.
They might have been to start with, but latterly they weren't, were they?
Yeah. No. Because, that's sort of the earliest series of the Goodwood revival cars.
Yeah.
That
blue and yellow one, that ERA always wins.
And there's that bloke, there's a bloke with a very distinctive crash helmet, young chap with long hair. We'll get his name. The way he drives this thing around Goodwood is absolutely outrageous.
Yes.
Yeah.
Sideways everywhere with a sort of, it's not like a wheel, it's like a tiller thing. It's like this. Like the steering wheel looks like you pulled it off a pub wall.
Yeah.
It's just extraordinary to behold. So, chain-driven cars, go out and buy one. If you've got one, write into us and tell us why you love it and how it makes you feel.
And let us drive it, please.
Yeah, and let me come and drive it, please.
Yeah.
I'll be gentle. So, let's move on to the second point of our agenda, which is, Neil will love this as well. Sometimes the train is better than the car. Discuss. I'm going to go to Manish first.
I was going to say, going to Cornwall in a train is really rather wonderful, and I've done it a few times. But in true Chris Cooper fashion, I'm going to say the best place to leave your car behind if you're traveling any great distance is India. And there, I think the really beautiful expresses that take you to several cities over a week blow any car journey away for comfort, safety, and sheer sanity. I mean, you really don't. I think I've mentioned it before a year ago on a podcast, going from Delhi to Agra and seeing a camel in the slow lane of the motorway that we were on coming towards us with massive great sheaf of straw. I mean, it's really unfunny, the way people drive, the mortality rate, all of it. But I found a couple of places. Can you imagine going from Delhi to Agra to Ranthambore, where you can go and see the tigers, then on to Jaipur, the pink city, Bikaner, another very beautiful city in Rajasthan, then to Jodhpur, and then ending up in Mumbai. And then you can reverse the journey back by train, or you can get on a plane. And you should see these trains. They're just basically palaces on wheels. I mean, the most beautiful food. You come out, wander around, have a little look, go and sniff an elephant, get back into the train, have your curry, and carry on. Like, perfect.
Are you going all Michael Portillo on us, Manish?
Not all Michael Portillo, if you know all about Michael Portillo.
No, but he is.
Maybe a little Michael Portillo.
He's a swarthy Alan Wicker.
Michael Portillo is not
That's
Alan Wicker. There are bits missing, like Alan Wicker did actually serve in the army and saw some action. And
yeah, he did. He must have. All that era did.
They were amazing. Alan Wicker, you can't mention Michael Portillo in the same breath as
No.
We shall fight and we shall win. I remember him saying that with his sort of pudding basin haircut. It was all very embarrassing.
Beautiful man.
Do you know what? Manish has in many ways answered this the way I wanted one of you to, because he's made train travel sound deeply romantic, and I feel that way about train travel. So I won't answer now, but I love the way he described it, because that's what I take from train travel. Neil, can you get on with train travel, or do you just hate the bloody things?
Yes, I've done exactly what Manish has explained. I spent 6 months in India. So I went Delhi, Varanasi, and then right the way around Jaipur, Udaipur. Ended up in Jaisalmer in the desert in Rajasthan, and then back to Delhi. So I've done that, and it is amazing. You learn about colour and smells in India. It's fair to say, but it's brilliant. And actually, I've been there for 20 years, and I should go back. I love a little train journey. I don't do enough of it. When you posed this question, I said to Emma, I'm going to Friday because I've been busy but lazy, which I suppose is normal for a man at work, and I haven't been up north with my job for a while, and I adore just getting to Euston early, or maybe cheating and driving to Milton Keynes, and then getting on a train to Liverpool or Manchester and getting that little cappuccino in that little coffee place, which I can never remember the name of, but the coffee's better than sort of Pret or Costa or...
So on the platform at Milton Keynes?
The platform at Milton Keynes, yeah.
Another one.
And then you buy Autocar because it just gives you an hour's read, and then you can leave it on the train. You don't want to carry it, with you. But if it's
hand it on for somebody else.
Yeah, hand it on. Yeah, recycle it to the man coming back from Manchester to London. And I always like it if I'm going somewhere at the end of the line, because I'm very prone for a nap. Because it's a lovely little 25-minute snooze on a train, isn't it? You look out the window. You need a window seat. It all changes. You need the window seat, don't you? Got your little newspaper, got your little Times, or if you're feeling clever, the FT and an Autocar and a little coffee, and look out the window. And frankly, on a Friday in December, there's not a lot of fun driving to Liverpool and back. It's pretty tough on that M6, both going up and coming down.
Yeah.
So unless you're like, sod it, I'm leaving at 4 and I'm driving to Wales and I'm going the back way, which I have done, but you still got to get home, haven't you? The train is bloody wonderful.
I completely agree. Chris Cooper.
The train is definitely better than the car, many times. And I think I'm with the guys. There's the Kyle of Loch Alsh line, which goes from, because I haven't done the Indian trip, but I've done a lot of travelling by train in Scotland. And the Kyle of Loch Alsh line goes from somewhere near Inverness all the way west to the Kyle of Loch Alsh, ultimately Plockton, out that way. Beautiful, stunning countryside.
Ooh.
There's no roads. And it's mostly single track because it was easier and cheaper to build a railway than a road. And railways were available, trains were available before cars really were. And there's something about that view, that unfiltered view of the Scottish Highlands, which is just stunning. You're right. It's got to be a window seat. It's just got to be a window seat. And I was looking through some photographs I took this afternoon of a few years ago when I was last in the west coast of Scotland. Plockton's a beautifully pretty village.
Never been there.
Loch Carron, Sea Loch. Do you remember, we're sort of that age, about 30 years ago, there was a BBC TV series about this sort of pot-smoking policeman in a pretty little village in the west coast of Scotland. Hamish Macbeth?
Yes. Yes.
little Scotty dog. That was the first time I went to Plockton, and I was there the summer they just finished filming it. And apart from remembering that's where it was, it's the first time I saw a Volvo 850 Estate, an R1. I thought, that's a cool car. It's funny how we remember where we were, that sort of cool cars.
We do.
But I think it's the best of both worlds. So there's something about destination. There's something about a sleeper train that I really love, where you can wake up and you arrive in Cornwall. But the best thing, and you can't really do it anymore, at least not in the UK, and it's the best of both worlds, it would be a sleeper motor rail to Inverness or somewhere on that way where you could take the car with you.
That would be lovely, wouldn't it?
You could
Did
take
you ever do the
car.
one in France?
I haven't done that one. No, my parents used to use the one in the UK.
I did
But
the one
to
in France.
to put your chosen car on the railway carriage, jump on it at Kensington, it used to be, didn't it? Kensington Olympia. And then in the morning, wake up, have a cup of tea, bacon sandwich. They stop, you'd unload your car, and you think, right, I'm going to drive west or wherever it is, up towards Dornoch or west to Oban or Ullapool. That would be magical.
I'm just
I'd
looking.
love to do that with Lola. Can you imagine your first trip?
We should do
Straight
that as
up
a
onto
trip. We should
train.
do it, the four of us.
Wow. Yes.
Yes.
We should just get somebody to say, look, can you fashion a little carriage to strap 4 cars on it, please? And can we pull the chain somewhere where we see a pretty road we can jump off before we get to Inverness? How hard could that be?
Oh, I'm in.
I love trains actually. I'm not as into trains as I am cars. I'm not a train nerd, but I did that film with Francis, the train guy, and it reminded me that as pieces of engineering, when you're up close to them, they are pretty awe-inspiring.
And the smell.
They smell. It's like getting up close to a racehorse that's just run. They sort of
Yeah.
they leak fluids, and they everything looks big and dangerous.
Hot.
And they've got bits that are like car bits, but they're much bigger.
Horses or trains?
Both. And I there's something about train journeys that are they're I think they feed our, and I could probably be careful what I say here, but our sort of Victorian sense of adventure. You know, they represent going somewhere, frontiers. There's something about train journeys. I think often arrive at points in our lives that are important. They're changes. You know, you get on the train to go on your first, your first steps after leaving home. I always remember being in Africa. First time I took what was called the blue train all the way across the Zim and down in South Africa, and it just like you're right. You have the window down. You get smells, temperature differences. You're right, Neil. Colours. You see people, and sometimes you're left with just fleeting glimpses. Did I see that, or did I not see that? And it's almost better that you can't quite work out whether you did or not. It lodges in your memory bank as something a bit different. I was with Manish at Milan station a few months ago, filming the end of something, and we were just in this beautiful building that was just like a mezzanine above the tracks, looking at the terminus, but looking at them going away. And there's something amazing about railway architecture. These buildings are some of the finest things I think we've ever created. They're communal spaces that are beautiful, but they've got these tracks that they just go off with perfect geometry they go into your future, don't they? They're just going away from you. I'm sure that's why when the Millennium Falcon goes into hyperspace, you get these lines coming off, because it's this idea of going into the future. So I'm completely addicted to them. I went on all sorts of different trains. I went on a Swiss mountain train to film with Paddy in the summer, a place called Rigi. These mountain trains, but there's stuff through the Alps is just mind-bending. You know, they sort of clunk along at 25 miles an hour, and before you know it, it's like you're in a 737 that's doing 10 miles an hour. You're just looking around, you're thinking, this is the key for me. I love driving, but quite often I think to myself, if I test myself with, would I rather be in a car? The answer is no. I wouldn't enjoy this as much. And even menial travel, I think quite often I'd rather take the train. When I go to London from Bristol, I would rather be on the train most of the time. I enjoy positive time on the train, i.e., when you're not stressed or it's not late or you've missed one. Difficult in the UK. Positive train time on the UK. I really use it. I get stuff done.
Yeah, it's lovely. It's relaxing.
Mm.
I'm a big
You know,
fan.
when we're in Tobago, one of the things I really miss when I drive, because the roads are so twisty, but invariably to your right you may have the sea, to your left some lovely rainforest. When you're driving, because the roads are so twisty, and because it is about a lane and a half wide, you've got to keep your eyes open. I never see anything. I'm so focused on the road. It's one of those things where being a passenger, I mean, there is no train, but being a passenger sometimes is the most wonderful thing, isn't it? You just get to appreciate. And just exactly what you say, just slightly space out, enjoy the moment.
Yeah.
It would be lovely if that, the Eurostar tunnel thing, whatever it's called, that you could carry on.
Yeah.
Because it's really cool going under the water, isn't it? But then you just wish you could say, "Take me to St. Moritz,"
Yeah.
or
A
Nice.
good TGV journey is still brilliant, and I'm going to go on a maglev at Shanghai that takes you from Shanghai Airport into the city. If anyone's been, I'm sure maybe we've been on that. It's just extraordinary. The numbers that come up. I mean, it's doing 250 miles an hour or something bonkers like that. They're remarkable. And if anyone's ever stood at a Japanese train station when the Shinkansen comes through, I mean, wow. That's probably up there with an SR-71 in terms of human engineering, isn't it? It's like, wow.
And they're 20, 30, 40 years old, those trains now. The technology. We've had a couple of family holidays in Japan, and jumping on the train in Tokyo and going to, I don't know, Nagasaki or wherever we bloody went. It's like 400 miles away, and it takes you sort of an hour and 45 minutes or something. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, they got it right, didn't they?
Oh, it's really good. Yeah.
And I think the other aspect of train travel, I think hardened car enthusiasts, because maybe we feel we are under pressure and we're a sort of slightly put upon minority, we feel we have to say we love driving or we'll always drive. But it's okay to take the train. Now, if the journey's going to be a bit shit and you don't fancy the M4 or the M6 or the M40, to use the greatest advertising strapline of all time, let the train take the strain.
Yeah.
It's a lovely way to travel. So, moving on, aren't we? We're in very wistful, positive mood today.
It's Christmas. We're sending positive Christmas vibes.
Yeah, well, you're a big fan of Christmas, Neil, aren't you?
Christmas.
Let's take this bonhomie and put it on the ground, squat over it, and shit right on its head.
Yes.
With the Restomod scene is out of control. You have won the lottery and drunkenly decide to buy one and return it to perfect original pre-donor spec. So you're going to unrestomod a restomod. Which one do you choose? I'm going to go first for Chris Cooper.
Well, I'd start, and I wouldn't finish, but I'd start with the E-Type at Harry and Meghan's wedding.
Oh, you've just taken my car.
That is everything that is wrong with the Resto scene.
Completely agree.
It's just an abomination. It's a humiliation. It's a woke gone mad annihilation and execution of what we love about cars and where they can go when they're done properly, and sustainable fuels and electric vehicles and sensible temperate use of the car, all ignored for 5 minutes of stupidity. And that's me being nice about it. And in fact, I would take any electric car. I went to that Land Rover thing. There's that Land Rover social thing in London. We're doing this on Sunday evening. It was in Belgrave Square this morning. It was fantastic. There were mostly defenders, all kinds of defenders, from ratty Series 1s to an amazing bowler and everything in between. And just a really, really, it wasn't lots of shuffle West End posh kids. It was just everybody from everywhere, people from Belgium. I parked next to two young lads who'd come from Canterbury in Kent that morning in a 1982 200 TDI pickup 90 wheelbase. Just, they loved it. They loved it.
Can I ask a question about that? Can I ask one question about that event? How do they turn around? Because the turning circle on them is so bad.
It's
So
funny, a
they'll
number of people
just
said
get
to me,
stuck.
why isn't Chris Harris here at this event? Because he loves Defenders so much. He can make all of his jokes about turning circles and why aren't there any Land Cruisers here? Anyway, we're getting off topic, which I
Could I
started.
just ask a question? What was the Defender which had the actual mortars on the back? Could they look live?
That was a Pink Panther. I'm assuming it was either a very, very impressive. We'll put a picture up. It was a Pink Panther replica, but it looked like it had proper weaponry. Or it was either a replica, or some chaps have been very, very adventurous in relieving it from. So yeah, the E-Type at Harry and Meghan's wedding.
Manish.
Well, I mean, I'm just going to go tag with Mr. Cooper on this. As you know, I think it's a really beautiful car. I think the Roadster, especially for me, is just one of the most aesthetic things. And, I've been in a few. An old friend of mine, when he was a registrar, built one from scratch. He didn't do the bodywork, but apart from that, I mean, he literally spent 2 years creating this thing. And it made the cover, I think, of Classic Car, Powder Blue Roadster. And just all the things that make not just cars, but this particular car so special, because they advertised it as the Series 1.5 modification. It was a second faster than the car would have been 0 to 60. And that old 3.8 engine was a stunning engine. So somebody at Jaguar then makes that engine even better, bores it out a little bit more, makes it a 4.2. And this thing's even smoother, and they've refined the seats, and they've done this and they've done that. And these guys actually wrote that they just removed the engine block and replaced it with a battery and put the electric motor where the gearbox was. As if that was, well, that's just a good thing, isn't it? And you just shake your head. I've got some quotes here. I just think this is just great. It's totally original in specification.
No, it's not.
This is the actual PR material for it.
Chris, let him speak.
Yeah, I know. I do not mind being interrupted on this one. It's totally original in specification, apart from its 21st century state-of-the-art powertrain and modified instrumentation and fascia. So it's completely original, apart from the bits that are not completely original. The next one. The XK six-cylinder engine was made from 1949 until 1992 and was fitted to nearly all iconic Jaguar models of that period, including the E-Type, the XK 120, the Mark II, and the XJ6. That's a good thing, isn't it? That's a good thing. So we're just going to put this battery there instead. And this one absolutely makes me livid. We could use this technology to transform any classic XK engine Jaguar. Well, fuck off.
Yes.
I mean, you could, yes. How long did this company last, by the way? They're not still doing this, are they? Tell me they're not still doing this.
I don't know.
I don't know who did it.
Well, info@classic.jaguar.co.uk. I mean,
there's been a few hiccups in the.
I've never seen one. I've never seen one, but I know it was an electric one. I've never seen them roll up to a sort of Cars and Coffee either, an electric Restomod. Have you seen one or not?
There's a bit of Lunaz around.
Is there?
Yeah. Less than there was.
Is there such a thing as putting a car into a stock and throwing fruit at it, rotten fruit and various
other
other
car's fault.
No, you're right. Actually, you're damn right. We just need to rip that engine out and put the original back in.
All of Manish's goodwill's gone there. He's had a right old rant. Room 101, in it goes. Right, Neil with an E. What are you going to choose?
Well, there was this crazy, very short-sighted phenomenon in the 80s and 90s where you went and bought beautiful Ferraris and converted them into very ugly Ferraris, which I don't know whether anyone knows about this ugly Ferrari, but it's called the 250 short wheelbase. And,
oh, yeah.
And there was this I don't know why people used to do it, because they'd take a gorgeous Ferrari, like a 250 GT Pininfarina, spend about 200 grand, paint it red with black leather, and make it into one of the ugliest Ferraris ever seen, which is this short wheelbase thing. Of course, so they could have done the 275 GTB if they had any sense, but obviously they didn't.
Is the 275 that cross-eyed one?
Yeah.
No, it's the very, very beautiful one that
Sorry, I always get that wrong. Sorry.
is no longer with me.
Every week you get that wrong.
So I would go and buy one of these 250 short wheelbase and actually inject some handsome life back into it. And I would actually, in all seriousness, the sad situation about these cars is this 250 GT PF Coupe, which was probably bought for 35 grand and converted into a short wheelbase, probably was, I don't know, two-tone gold in Bronzo Monte Carlo, right? with a Rosso Vernaccia two-tone roof with green lizard leather that was, I don't know, bought by the Shah of Iran's mistress. You know, these Ferraris were incredibly gorgeous spec, and they were sadly ruined and painted red with black leather. And actually, they never look quite right. You know, they're not a real short.
Well, that's it, because you
can tell they're a little bit chunky in the wrong places around the hips. They've got, Austin Allegro side lights or something. They're never quite right, are they? So I would do that. I would do it for the, frankly, benefit of mankind and take it back to the gorgeous spec 250 PF that it was originally.
Good answer. I don't know where I stand on this. I work with Singer, and a lot of people object to the number of 964s that have been used as basis cars for those. And but I maintain that they made 65,000 964s. There's enough to go around. And most of them have become very old and don't get used or whatever that is. So instinctively, I'm not against taking a donor car that some people might find it offensive if it's been taken apart. There are a couple that I struggle with. If you look at the vehicle that it's become, and you think to yourself, "Oh, blimey, I think I preferred what it started as," then maybe the Restomod has failed the initial test, which it should have been given a new lease of life, a new aesthetic that makes it even more attractive. It's like going in for a full facelift, isn't it? Really, as a human being, if you come out looking worse,
yeah,
then you've wasted your money. So, and I think many of these Restomods, particularly the Porsches, do pass that test, and many don't. And isn't it interesting that if you're really into them, subtle little differences is what are change everything. A Rob Dickinson design, to me, there's just always something about it. It's just a little bit better than the other ones. I know I'm biased, but there's something about it.
And they're not shit either. I mean, that's the most important thing.
So I think there's a couple. I can't remember the name, but we'll put a name up now or a picture. We did an episode of Top Gear ages ago where Paddy had one of those 355s that is actually an MR2 underneath.
Yeah,
and it was very funny, and he was very funny in it. But it's so wrong, and for what I couldn't get across in the show really was I didn't care about the fact it was passing itself off as a Ferrari. I rather liked the MR2 that was underneath it. I know Mr. Cooper would understand as well. I know they could be a bit edgy, but it's an MR2 is an iconic Japanese sports car, and I'd rather give that another lease of life than I would have it turned into a 355. And I suppose the 355 also, for me, it might be the holy grail of car design. I love them.
Oh, that's a big debate.
I think they're brilliant. I really do. I just love Pininfarina 359. Sergio at his best for me.
Sorry to interrupt you. I watched the start, looking for something to watch last night. The boys, everyone was out, and I watched the opening bit of GoldenEye with the DB5, obviously neck and neck with the 355. But the shot of following the rear of the 355, that's an arse, isn't it?
Yeah, I know. Not
Do you remember who was driving it? It was Xenia Onatop, and she also had
Yeah.
a rear end.
She had significant loins. That was her way of dispatching, wasn't it?
She did.
What a way to go! What a way to go!
What would you be looking at?
Yeah.
I know a lot of people are split on the 355 now. It's a bit like back in the day, the 993 was the best looking 911 ever. Now everyone's going, maybe the 964 is better looking. I do love the 355. And I know that there's a company that recently did a Restomod, or showed one based on the 355. And I'm like, leave that alone. You know, there's lots of clever people involved with it, I'm sure, but just don't go there. It's like watching one of those talent shows on TV, and someone comes on and goes, "I'm going to sing Kate Bush's Wuthering Heights," and all the judges go, "Don't do it, don't do it."
No, it's a tricky challenge.
Leave it alone.
Try the Birdie song instead.
Yeah,
there were easier challenges than 355.
So I'm not being I'm not being nasty about it, but I just leave it. Why would you bother? It's not gonna happen. So that would be my one. Yeah, I think a 355 GTB, the one in Goldfinger is a GTS, isn't it? It's got a Targa panel. But I think a GTB, have to own one. With one of those Kai Presto straight through exhaust.
Driving position's a bit more your physique than mine.
You don't think about that when you're driving it. You just get on and drive it, don't you? It's absolutely, what a thing.
Yeah.
So there you go. Now let's move on. I've got my agenda here. Neil Clifford. he's going first. I'm going to let him go first again. You're allowed to enter a motor race that no longer runs. Which one do you choose? Neil Clifford.
I'm so bloody predictable. I'm even starting to bore myself. Well, for me, there's only one. I know everyone can guess it before I say it, but I just am so in love with the Targa Florio. May I suggest to everyone after this, listening to this bloody podcast, type into YouTube Targa Florio 1972 Alfa Romeo. Just put that into YouTube and have 9 minutes of the most gorgeous little film by Vic Elford.
Oh, quick Vic.
You know, what a cool looking chap that guy was. And actually, Helmut Marko was racing there. And the balls of these guys screaming around, what is a very, very emotional place for me anyway, Sicily, I adore the place. Dodging donkeys, dodging kids, it's just the blue sky, the mountains, the people, the architecture, the fact that it's whatever it is, 6 laps of 90 kilometers. You only have 15 seconds to go before the next guy goes. If I could go back in time and have particularly bigger testicles than unfortunately I have, so I could actually drive in the race, that would be the one for me. It's just dreamy. So yeah, that's unpredictable, but
it's not a boring answer.
No, and honestly, that 9 minutes on YouTube is one of the loveliest things. Probably one of the, for me, I know it rivals my other boring answer of the Milli 1955 with Sterling Moss. Those two for me, you can take everything else in the world, frankly, that'd do me, those two things.
I love it. I've never been to drive around Sicily.
We need to do that. I think Neil can be tour guide.
May the 9th, 2025. I've already got the date in my diary.
Okay. Hold us to it.
Yeah, it's incredible. I did it a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
Mega.
Manish.
So the modern version of this exists, but I don't think it's a patch on what it used to be. And it's the original Austrian Grand Prix, the one that we had really in the 70s and it stopped. I think 87 was last year. And if you ever look at a map of the quote-unquote Red Bull Ring superimposed on the old the Österreich Ring, this was properly scary, this circuit, properly scary. just carved into the countryside, and people thought it was old, and it wasn't. It's 1970, something like that. I think it was the first Grand Prix, 70, 71, something like that. And
Yeah.
there are just two corners on it, which I just remember just watching drivers. You just watch it on TV. Hellerlicht, which is right at the top of a hill. It's a flick right. You can't see where you're going. And you should read John Watson's description of taking that corner in Motorsport magazine. It's just one of the most brilliant pages on, I wish you could see this circuit as it was in its former glory. And the Bosch curb, which is basically like parabolica, but you're going downhill and it's slightly off camber. And I just remember there was, back in the 80s, there were about 10 cameras. It wasn't like we had amazing camera angles, but it always looked just so exciting. And the race that, I wish I could see is the 85 race, because Senna had a very bad qualifying in that. I can't remember what the problem was. It was a turbo or something. And he started something like 10th and he finishes second. And you just see this Lotus doing all that really scary stuff that only Senna could do at the most scary circuit you've ever seen. So the 85 Austrian Grand Prix.
It's a good one. Go and have a look at that circuit. Go on Wikipedia it and look at it. Because what you realise is that the Nürburgring wasn't as awe-inspiring or different as all the other circuits back then. There were lots of other places. Spa down the road is well worth a look at. The long Spa is absolutely mind-bending. Chris Cooper.
So before Mr. Harris says this, there are in fact no motor races that no longer run because I once entered them and caused mayhem. They're all still running. Cameron sent me, we'll put it up on the YouTube thing. Cameron sent me an onboard. An onboard is a loose description for what's being shown of the karting superkart race on the Isle of Man in Peel.
Yeah.
These are things that are 150 miles an hour. It makes the TT race in Isle of Man look sensible.
How
so,
fast?
funnily enough,
Did you
that
say
no longer
150 miles an hour.
Well,
superkarts do. Yeah, superkarts are probably the most they are statistically easily the most dangerous form of circuit racing because the speeds are so high, you just get thrown out. So, in fact, we've stopped licensing. Motorsport UK has stopped licensing superkart racing in the UK. It may come back, but it needs lots of things doing to it.
I can remember going to drive one, and this stalwart who was just part of the movement, awe-inspiring guy, gave me this set of motorcycle leathers to wear that were just like an elephant's hide, and he said, grids are really down. We're back down to like 50 cars. Sorry, 50 of these things going into turn one with no suspension, absolutely flat with a CRF 250 two-stroke in the front. Good God.
250?
They're 250s at the back with gearbox.
There's some of them, even
or
until...
they want 2.5s.
Even until last year, they were running on... there was a race meeting the boys were doing in Snetterton last year, and on the same race meeting, there were karts on Snetterton. But the one I'm going to pick, and you've mentioned it, Chris, because everyone can drive it today. It's the original Spa. First time I went to Spa was just about the time they were decommissioning the road circuit part of Spa from bottom of Stavelot through to the bus stop, which was a bus stop. Buses stopped there. And when you got to the top of Les Combes, rather than that sort of right, left, right, down towards No Name, and then down to Pouhon, the circuit just carried on. And it went through... you can drive Bourneville, which is this never-ending, very, very, very fast right-hand. You think, at some point, we're going to end up back where we started. We've seen this corner forever. It's so far. The Master Kink, everyone must have heard of the Master Kink. You can stop and have that photograph at the Master Friterie, which in the day was flat in a 917.
Amazing.
Just unbelievable. And Stavelot, the bottom, when you get down to the bottom before you start turning back, that sort of very, very fast bank bit, and then it's flat all the way back to where Stavelot is.
obligatory Master Friterie shop.
That's the one.
Amazing.
Yeah. Frite and mayonnaise.
I've never
So-
been to Spa.
Oh, right, okay. You take us.
it's
You
very-
show us around Sicily. We'll show you around Belgium.
You
Done.
can go there without. You don't have to drive it. You can just stand there looking at it and just do the driving all the way down to through those villages.
Can you go on the train?
We can get the train.
You can get the fast train to Brussels, actually, and there's a cheeky train that goes to Liège. I know
To
that.
Liège, yeah. There's one other I'd pick. Sorry, I haven't done this tonight, but there's one other I'd pick. I really love the idea of the racing that used to happen at Crystal Palace.
Ooh.
Saloon car racing. Saloon car racing basically in central London. Well, London.
Yeah.
That amazing Crystal Palace track. The other one that's kind of similar, particularly to a Scot, would be Ingliston, which is where the Royal... It's basically between... You go there now and you think, where on earth could it have been? It's basically between the main road, the A8 between Edinburgh and Glasgow, and the airport at what was Turnhouse, now it is Edinburgh Airport, where Jackie Stewart and Jimmy Clark, they all started racing. So everyone can race and drive on. Everyone can drive on the old Spa. Ingliston and Crystal Palace, that would be mega. Bring those back.
My instinctive reaction to this one is choose the most ridiculous event because it gives you the chance to describe it. And I think the 72 hours of the Nürburgring is probably the most stupid event I've ever heard in my life. And I think Vic Elford did it in a Sportmatic 911. I don't know what level of amphetamine or whatever they took to do that you had to take, but I'm sure by the end of it, they probably had to, they had to flush his system out and start again. But there was a race called the 72 Hours of the Nürburgring, and he won it. I think he won it by a day or whatever the measurement was. But it's a feat of endurance driving that I think most of us just can't really begin to comprehend. However,
the mortality rate, if you do 2 hours there, is through the roof. 72 hours there.
It's ridiculous. But there's an event. Actually, I'm going to be a little bit arch and fit something in here. So, for those of us that love On Any Sunday, the great Malcolm Smith, who's an integral part of that film, died last week. And Bruce Brown Films put up a lovely post about him. You just wanted to be him, and you watch that thing to start with. It's the coolest dude ever. So for that reason, I know it still runs in a different format, but I was fascinated by this notion of the international 6-day trial. What was that all about? And the Americans would report on this event, this bizarre. It always seems to be in the middle of Spain, and they would just do things to themselves and their machines for 6 days. It was just torture. And they would as a combination of skill, endurance, perseverance, and bloody mindedness. I'm not sure there is a more impressive form of motorsport. So I'd like a new body because I'd need one to do it, and I'd like to go and do the international 6-day trial. But I'd like to do it in 1972.
That is the best film ever made.
It is, yeah.
If you're weird people like us, that is the movie. You only need one DVD in your life. That's it.
Yeah. And make sure you have a good surround sound system to play the music because it's the best soundtrack. Particularly the flat track, where they get this flat track when the first time they show you with the metal shoe, the music that comes on then. Oh, wow.
There's the motorbike.
Yeah.
Wherever it is.
There it is.
There it is. Yeah. So yeah, Malcolm Smith. I know I'm being a little bit tangential there, but I choose Malcolm Smith. So
yeah.
We're now going to go for. Are we 2-car garage now? Where am I at?
Lewis one.
No, Lewis. Okay, so here we go. There was a bit of theatre going on this weekend. We had Lewis on after qualifying. After practice, saying he doesn't have it anymore. He's not fast anymore. But then after qualifying, he says, "Actually, I've still got it." Which one is it? Has Lewis? Is he fast anymore? Do we believe him? Is he playing games? Is he creating some theatre for when he arrives in Maranello? What do you think, Manish?
An ex-world champion friend of mine sent me a text when he saw this saying, "I think we're being set up for a little bit more drama," and I sort of hope that's what it is. We're recording this just literally an hour and a half after the Qatar race. has finished, and I'm actually quite cross about it. I found the race very, very frustrating for lots and lots of reasons. Mostly because by the time you hear this podcast, Alex Albon lost a wing mirror on the main straight. And there it was, lying on the main straight for 4 laps, and nothing was done about it, except a bloke waving a yellow flag. In fact, it wasn't even waved, was it? It was a stationary yellow flag. And eventually, I think it was Valtteri Bottas hit it, exploding it into a billion pieces, which then caused 2 punctures, one of which was Lewis, the other one of which was Carlos Sainz. And right in the middle of all of this, Lando was in hot pursuit of Max, who was leading the race, and he made up 6/10 on the straight. And Max, in sort of modern racing driver fashion, got straight into the radio and said, "You've got to get him investigated for that. He shouldn't have done that. He got me up." And they all do it. And it's really, really, he did it. Did you call the teacher? And the bottom line is Lando, instead of the race director cleaning up the shit all over the circuit, the inevitable shit that was going to be all over the circuit, we got a very late safety car. We saw the spectacle of the entire grid driving through the pit lane whilst they cleared this stuff up. And then Lando got a 10-second stop-go penalty, i.e. a 30-second penalty, which I thought was a bit of displacement activity for what should have happened in the first place, which is clean the crap up. So sorry about the rant, but in the middle of that somewhere is the fact that Lewis got a puncture to add to his useless qualifying, to add to his slightly lackluster race. And he came into the pits and he wanted to retire the car. He came in and said, "Look, I want to stop." And at the end of the Grand Prix, there was some speculation from Jensen and Crofty as to whether Lewis will even be in Abu Dhabi. Both of them saying, "Look, I hope he comes. I hope he comes." So I think he's found this season very difficult. I think the car clearly has been capricious, I think is the best word for it. Very, very unpredictable car. Certainly not to his liking. He knows his time. Also, just look at the chronology of the season. He knew right at the beginning of the season, just like Carlos Sainz, this is it. I'm not in the team anymore. Mm-hmm. And you can turn around and go, well, in Lewis's case, it was all really positive. And in Carlos's case, it was all very negative. I put it to you, gentlemen, that their cases are exactly the same. I think if Lewis was given a 2-year contract, I think he would have been at Mercedes. I think he's felt rejected throughout the year. I think he's a driver who thrives on being very motivated. His psychology is very, very important to him. And I just, very annoying race, especially if you're a bit of a McLaren fan, which I am. Very annoying race. And then on top of that, just sort of seeing this 7 times world champion kind of, creeping into the pits and going, "Oh, I want to stop." And we heard that last race as well. So he's somewhere, basically, let's just hope the Ferrari is to his liking and he gets his mojo back, because it's quite hard. And we've had Lewis day in, day out since 2007, and he's been pretty exciting since 2007, and it's very tough. You remember how we started this whole podcast a year and a half ago with Neil going, "Lewis is going to get his 8th. Lewis is going to get his 8th. 18 months later, it's a pretty depressing way for these 2 seasons to have kind of petered out, I think.
I don't remember that. I thought we started this podcast in September. What did we do?
You're right. You're absolutely right.
Yeah. The rest of it was a dream when you weren't wearing underpants.
You're right. Bobby Ewing was in this pod. You're right.
Oh, God, was it? Yeah. The shower and the...
Yeah. God, it's all come back.
Okay. So the answer has Lewis still got it is there was a wing mirror on the straight. Good. So Neil Clifford, what are you thinking about this?
It's total mind games, obviously, isn't it? He's preparing the road to completely fuck over Charles's head. Because he's a 7 times world champion. They're so devious and so clever, and he's already now he's doing an Alex Ferguson on him. He's starting to soften him up. I think it's going to be immensely difficult for Charles, because not as if I'm particularly beautifully well informed or technically knowledgeable, but Charles isn't good enough to play mind games and outplay Lewis, I don't think. If it was Max or Alonso, it'd be a different story. But I think Charles is going to be easy meat for Lewis, and Lewis is just beginning the games.
Okay, Chris Cooper.
Yeah.
Can we clear one thing up? First of all, the suggestion that Mercedes somehow has been hobbling Lewis.
No.
Actually, Jensen said this afternoon. I was just delighted. I was screaming at television just before he said it, because he's completely right. No racing team ever, anywhere, would have said, you know what, I quite like it if Lewis is a bit slower today.
But who's been saying that? Who has?
Are you aware of the invention called the internet?
Well, is it all just Twitter? Is it just Twitter crap?
It's lots of people.
Lots of people.
There is no. I mean, the number of people that have to be in on the scan. So that's not what's happening. I did a little bit of totting up earlier on as to the position on points as of this evening, end of Qatar Grand Prix, between George and Lewis over the last 3 seasons. Over the last 3 seasons, up to tonight, Lewis has 685 points. George has 686. 1 point in it over 3 seasons. But you'd have to say probably George will finish in front this season, and he'll have won 2 seasons out of the 3 over Lewis. Lewis says he isn't fast anymore. Do we believe him? I think the answer is no and yes. No, we don't believe him because, Chris, you and I, we've played at racing, but, there are times when we're a bit younger, we played at it really hard. And we had a little glimpse from time to time into what it takes to extract the last bit of performance from a car, whether it's on one lap or a race or whatever. And that the fundamental ability that he's got doesn't go away. The ability is always there. The synapses, the muscle memory, it's always there. So has something changed? He's a human being. And I just wonder whether there is something in him where he thinks, do you know what? Is the hunger still there? You've got to have an unbelievable hunger, not necessarily to do the training or to think, oh, God, I'll do the travel and so forth. But crikey, I've done this for a million years. Have I still got what it takes mentally to put it on the line? And that's where I'm not sure. I think you're right, Neil. I think if it was a pure mind game, I think, bless him, poor Charles, could not have made a better effort to show any teammate where his emotional weaknesses and frailties are, particularly when you that little childish spat he had at the end of the Vegas Grand Prix last week. You thought anybody had written down and say, aha, I know how to get behind his eyeballs.
Yeah.
Will it happen? I don't know. I mean, clearly Lewis is just as fast, technically, fundamentally, as he ever was. But can he be? I don't know. I really hope it's not.
Be a Ferrari world champion out of those two. You'd back Lewis, wouldn't you?
I think you'd back Lewis out of those two to be Ferrari world champion.
But okay, I agree with that statement. But I think the way that he would become champion is not by being necessarily the fastest over lap, but by making the fewest mistakes. I think that's when you reach that level. Lewis's dominant years were shaped by the fact that he just didn't make mistakes. He was just relentless. And Max, this last couple of years when he was unstoppable, it was actually the lack of mistakes that defines it always.
Yeah.
You're quite right about how to define this in, has he still got it? Yes. Can he still access it? Are we sure? I don't think he's as fast as he was when he first arrived on the scene. I think the human body does slow down. I don't care who you are.
He's 40, Chris.
Yeah,
He's
you know,
40.
your reflexes are not the
Yeah,
same.
they aren't the same. Your
They're
synapses aren't the
they're
same.
not the same. So I think you do slow down. But what you do become is you become a wily old fox. And maybe what's slightly unfair about the sport in its current form is it doesn't maybe leave as many areas to explore, that maturity to explore. You could, as the hills and the mosses became older, they could eke out more performance. They could eke out fuel economy. They could be kinder on transmissions. There were lots of ways they could deploy their expertise. Whereas these cars, there's not really many ways you can do that because they're very reliable. You've got to go out and smash out, infinitesimally fast lap times within thousands of each other. So there's that aspect. So I think he has probably lost something, but I'm not sure that should be a surprise to any of us. I think Lewis, having lost something, is still probably one of the very best drivers on the grid in the right car, and he's that bank of experience, that calmness that he often displays. That's just so valuable. It really is, and I wouldn't want to be Charles next year, even if he doesn't turn up to the next race. And there's a whole lot of negative press over the winter, and will he turn up to Maranello or not? You just know in that first race, if you were Charles, you'd be thinking, "Oh God, the world's reporters are on Lewis in a red suit. They've forgotten me. He won't like it." You're right. That outburst after the Vegas Grand Prix was bizarre.
Yeah. But the thing I would ask is just I do think he if it comes to a psychological battle between him and Charles, I mean, I think it's 10-0 to Lewis. But I was just looking at his body language. It hasn't been 6 months since Abu Dhabi 2021. It's been 2 years. Eking out a pole position. 3 years, 3 full seasons. Eking out a pole position, eking out a fastest lap, eking out a win, being nowhere near a championship. And we looked at, in terms of competitiveness, he only had 2 years where the McLaren wasn't ultra competitive and won with the Mercedes right up until the end of 2021. This is the first sort of proper fallow period he's had year on year. And he's doing it at the ages of 37, 38 and 39. It's a tough time not to be competitive. Normally people have that at the beginning of their seasons. That's the character forming bit. And you're quite right, Chris. The wily old fox can't hide behind his wisdom because his wisdom is now all telemetry. There are computers that know everything. They know, they can set up. But what I would say just in his favor is the formula that we have. They are very heavy cars and the tires have never been in a way so mismatched to the performance of the cars. These cars are often 6, 7, 8 seconds a lap off their potential. And I think if I was 40 years old, I'd rather be in that formula than the one that Michael Schumacher was racing in with 600 kilo cars and a third of a tank of petrol. Because I think actually it would have slaughtered a lot of the older guys. I think Alonso, Lewis, I think they'd have been suffering much, much more for it. That's all I would say. So I don't think it is pure psychology. I think he is down, and nobody can blame him for being that.
I think one thing we're going to be gifted is this notion of the old dog versus the young pup. It's one of the most compelling things in sport.
It is.
You've got the old lion. Is he going to get taken over and killed by the pride? Or for me, one of the greatest deconstructions of that was when Alonso turned into 130R next to Schumacher and gave that brilliant interview afterwards where he just said, "I turned in, he's got 2 kids." He was going to back out, wasn't he? And it's just an amazing interview because he just totally described the difference between the young and that doesn't give a shit. And they've all been there. And the old dog was the young pup once. They know what's in their mind. They know the places they'll go to win. So I think it's going to be fascinating. But yeah, I think we all agree that it's inconceivable that Lewis hasn't lost something, but he's still formidable.
Phenomenal.
Can I ask one question?
Yeah.
If they suddenly changed the rules for next year and said, we're just going to use one car, the identical car, who is in the top 5?
Oh, God almighty. How long do you want? Okay.
They are doing that already. All the cars are exactly the same.
It's still Max at the front. Right now,
I'll go first. Max, number 1 by some margin. I then go... the top 5 for me would be Lando, Max, George.
Lando ahead of Max.
No. You just want 5. Do you know what? I can't. I'll tell you what. Let's do that for next week. Is that all right?
Yeah, because I'd be
good question.
fascinated if it was all down to the driver.
Yeah. Well, I don't even want one. I want Max at the moment. I just think he's head and shoulders.
But I'd like to know second and third in terms of sheer talent and speed.
We'll do it for next week.
Yeah.
So now we'll move on to the 2-car garage. Last week we had a Tamiya one, didn't we? And it was posted or suggested by a friend of mine called Carl Fortune. He's a motoring journalist. And I didn't plug his name, so he sent me a decent email, a decent note saying, "You didn't mention my name." So Carl, I am mentioning your name. I'm sorry about that, boss. It was just a busy week, and it was remiss of me. And he's a big Tamiya fan as well, like the rest of us. So, Paul, this is a good one. I don't know who did you write this one, Manish?
Yes.
Yeah, it's good. Oh, bloody hell! I'll tell you what.
My answer will be completely shit. But it's a good.
By the way, I couldn't discuss I lay down on the bed. It's been quite a long week, and I lay down on the bed to watch the Grand Prix, and I was 2 laps in, I was gone. I got a shake 10 minutes before this recording, saying, "Get up! You've got to do your podcast." I was absolutely in the land of nod. It was delicious. You are the second son of a minor aristocratic family. Alas, you were born with the brains, your elder brother with the promise of the family fortune. Knowing you'd inherit nothing, nada, zilch, zero, put you in therapy during the long vacations from your famous boarding school near Slough, but the therapy has worked. You're relaxed about who you are, which is a farmer with no land. Your father willed you a 2-bedroom flat in Bayswater that he cohabited in his secret life with his Argentine polo princess and true love. You're just lost. You are basically a Bond novel, aren't you? That's what you are. You've been offered £1 million for it. Labour's farmland inheritance tax has irked your chinless, witless, and brainless older brother, who will sell you a slice of his estate for £900,000. So you have £100,000 left for 2 cars. One must be from the JLR stable, new or used. The other, a pretty thing, just in case you meet your own Argentine polo princess. You are single, brackets. Choose brilliantly. So, Chris Cooper can go first.
I quite like this one because I think it is possible to have 2 Jaguar Land Rover products.
Oh,
that fantastic brand and business that we still love. So I would have 60s stuff is sort of getting a bit cheaper. And I found this afternoon a Series 2 fixed head coupe. So it's 1969, 70, 69 car, I think. Fixed head coupe E-Type, lovely one. It's on sale at Targa Florio. And that was up at about 60 grand, which I quite liked.
Automatic.
And then another one.
Is it an automatic gearbox?
No, manual.
Oh, good.
Series 2. Did the Series 2 have an automatic?
No, I was taking the piss.
Yeah. Moving on. I'm so neurally diverse. I don't spot stuff like that.
No.
I'd have a 94 hard dash Rangy LSE.
Yeah.
Which on I found on it would be an M. Yeah, L or an M.
Yeah, nice.
93, 94 L or an M. That's what I'd have for 100 grand.
There you go. Manish, how are you spending £100,000? And it is your
very close to Mr. Cooper. It feels like a kind of long lost brother today. I found a very, very Bond-esque Series B 1974 Range Rover. It has to be a 2-door Range Rover, really. I just love the colour. They call it Bahama Gold.
Yeah, it's nice.
Oh, yeah.
Just a fabulous colour. Actually, the thing was just under £50,000. And what I would do, because I understand that these things aren't the most reliable car, is I'd take it to Kingsley KR and say, look, I've got an extra £20,000. Don't touch the interior. Don't worry about it because I've got a small farm. But please just make sure it starts and runs.
So for £20,000, they would put a new starter motor on it for you.
I
Yeah.
think they probably would. I think there may be a few bits and pieces. I mean, I've been reading about some of the horrific stuff that goes on with these old cars. So you want somebody good to do it, and I would use a chunk of money to do that. And with my
No, I
remaining,
was going to say, who would do horrific things to older cars, like completely rip out the interior and spend the rest of time putting a new one in?
it's not completely ripped out. It's not an older car. This interior. Wait till you sit in this
I
interior.
can't wait.
Okay?
I might
Well,
be
not
dead,
tonight,
but I
but-
can't wait.
Oh no, January.
Do not
Okay.
accuse me of resto-modding a 20-year-old.
No, you're definitely not doing that. I
I'm
agree
not
with that.
resto-modding.
No, you're not doing that.
I'm just
Well, you
restoring her
are. You
to
are
the
really.
glory she should have had. Sorry?
You are really.
No, I'm not. Am I?
You're going to put a 2JZ motor in it, right?
No.
So let's.
The second car, the second car I actually brought up last week, I would get, to match my Bahama Gold Rangy, I would get a mustard yellow Lotus Elan.
Nice.
And that's what I would have. 20.
A sprint.
So your 2-car garage looks like various shades of diarrhea.
That's so mean.
Yeah.
That's so mean. I was just thinking of them, this glorious green countryside, these two lovely yellow blobs on my brother's drive.
These days, Bahama Gold would be described as the launch colour, wouldn't it, for that car?
Yeah, would comms colour be the comms colour.
Yeah.
They look Norfolk mustard, okay? Norfolk mustard.
No, Bahama
black
Gold's
interior,
good.
And Bahama Gold. They would be my two cars.
And passing 737 and think you're a splat of poo. Right. They're lovely cars. They're bang on. I'm into Elans. That's going to be another weakness soon for me, that is. Neil, where are you going with this?
I think actually we need to convince Manish to get a Lotus Elan. I think you'd look absolutely cool as fuck in a little Roadster Elan Sprint yellow. And you know what? There's almost nothing better to drive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're so fast, and you feel like the king. Actually, it's such a lovely little thing. And you with that hair, Manish, you would look.
You'd feel like
leather
somebody from the
jacket,
Avengers.
Shades.
Yeah,
I
you
do
would.
feel like somebody.
We need to do this. Okay, my
I'm
two-car
in.
garage. I'm not doing the Range Rover thing, even though I can bore everyone with Range Rovers. I actually am going Defender. I'm obviously I'm biased because I've got one of these. I'm going Defender 50th V8
Yeah.
automatic
Yeah.
because I think this guy's still going to be smoking around London. There's nothing actually worse than a Defender, which is manual, which frankly about 99.9% of a manual. But a V8 auto short wheelbase Defender is a very cute little thing. It sounds
Clunky transfer box. Transfer box.
Yeah, it sounds great.
There's one there today, yeah.
It's very slow actually, but who cares? It's a lovely thing. About 40 grand probably for a good one.
Nice.
And then it's a big debate for me on this because you can't really get the Ferrari you want and you can't really get the Porsche you want for 50, 60 grand. So I always, my diverting mark is always Alfa Romeo because you're saying such a lot about yourself if you're driving an Alfa Romeo, I think. It's a thinking man's Ferrari. And actually for 60 grand, even though you could argue whether it was called pretty, it's obviously named the opposite of pretty, Il Monstro. I'd have an SZ.
Yeah.
Because I love an SZ. I actually think it's cool as a cucumber. And they drive nice. The engine
They are nice to drive.
The engine noise is fabulous. I much more enjoyed an SZ than I ever did an Integrale.
Yeah, no, you're right.
I don't have for SZ and a Defender 50th V8 Auto. That's a great little two-car garage.
It's a very good two-car garage. I like that. I'm going to go double Brit. So, for me, the most desirable of the ICE Jaguars of the last few years is it's a bit of a lurker. I know someone that's got one, and it replaced a Macan Turbo, and they reckon it's miles better. It's the F-Pace SVR thing,
Ooh.
I think it looks quite good in that dark green colour. I'd have one of those, stick it on some winter tyres, and that will do anything you need on a farm. And they go like stink. They steer beautifully. It's a really, really good car, actually. And I've got to get one of these because I've probably mentioned it 10 times over the last 18 months. I can't have done that. It's only been going since September. It's an XK120 on Spats. I mean, there's too many for sale. There's, the prices have been doing this. So, we're going to have to start tracking these soon.
60 grand.
But they're just, what a car. One of those on Spats in a dark blue that's not been properly restored. There's a bit of life in the paintwork, maybe with a sort of burgundy, slightly beaten up, patinated interior. I'm sure all day long.
It's beautiful. It's probably the most. It is probably the most beautiful car ever made. It's all over the E-Type.
I think so. Yeah, they're gorgeous things. Anyone got any music they want to share or not?
Yeah.
I didn't put music on this. Yeah, I've got some music. I'm going to start with my music choice this week. So I did a lot of miles last week around Northern Europe. And at one point I was driving in the very, very small hours, not going fast at all. I was just on dual carriageways. And I had a good old Blue Nile session. I've not had one for a while. And headlights on the parade for me.
Yeah.
Once you get into a Blue Nile wormhole,
Is that from Hats?
I think that's from Hats. Yeah.
Yeah.
Just what a band.
It is.
Wish they'd made more music. Manish Pandey, what are you going to go for?
Well, on the basis of my sort of chinless aristocrats, I wanted to find something that was very, very English, but actually isn't at all. Though a guy called J. Unger wrote the Ashokan Farewell, and it became famous in the 80s because it was a theme tune for a big, I think it was HBO, I can't remember who did it, series on the American Civil War. In 1995, Her Majesty's Royal Marine Band played it, and the version you've got to listen to is directed by Captain John Perkins, and it will make you cry. It is the most stirring bit of, I feel, transplanted English music ever. It really will make you cry.
Nice.
Oh, okay. I love these choices, man. It's really good. Neil, what are you going to go for?
May I suggest that everyone goes out and listens to the new Cure album?
Yeah.
Ooh. Because it's really, really, really bloody good. It's basically exactly the same as, what was it called? Wish. That early 90s album I had one CD and I drove around Italy in a Volkswagen Corrado for 3 weeks.
Yeah.
It's as good as that album. And they're all good, actually. But the song, I did write it down, I Can Never Say Goodbye. It's bang on, perfect Cure. You're happy to kill yourself to it. Yeah.
Robert Smith, he just legend.
Can I say I also thought I could sing like Rob Smith too, but I won't do that impression. We learned all the Cure songs, dude.
Magic.
What was that song from Wish? From the Edge of the Deep Green Sea. Listen to that out loud. Okay.
That album is
Chris Cooper.
Mega.
I'd pick Vampire by Olivia Rodrigo.
Oh,
it's
modern.
It's out early on the year. It's just in the car.
Vampire.
It's magic. That's what I pick. Go and listen to it.
She's cool.
There we go. Cool. So thank you for joining us. This was recorded on a Sunday night after I hadn't watched the Grand Prix. Neil Clifford, I think. Did you watch the Grand Prix?
I watched the Man City-Liverpool game. It was more interesting, to be honest.
Manish Pandey did watch the Grand Prix, as did Chris Cooper. I will do my research next time. I apologise. Thank you for joining us on this week's Load of Waffle. We hope you join us next week. Bye-bye.